And let's just, yeah. Well, there's Norman Emerson, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Norman. Okay. Yeah, people are starting to file in and take their seats, so to speak. Great, I'm just seeing. Oh, Julie Wang is here. Yep. Okay. And you can chat with people. Okay. Great. I'm going to start in just a second here. I'm just letting everybody get started, or letting everybody come in. 29 participants. Are we stuck there? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off because we've got 30 participants, but the number doesn't seem to be going up at the moment. We've got 120 registered, but you just never know these days what you're going to get. There's 31. Okay, well, it's starting to fill up again. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm Jeff Tamblin. I'm the executive director of Video Trust, and just want to welcome everybody to our K-12 libraries responses to a pandemic webinar. That's the title. Thank you all for attending today, and I want to thank our two panelists and my co-host, and we'll do some introductions in just a minute. But first, let me say that we're a nonprofit organization. We advocate for libraries and film. We provide professional development and film resources for K-12, public and academic librarians. You can learn more and you can sign up for our monthly newsletter at videotrust.org. As you well know, a lot has happened since the beginning of March, which is when the country and especially the schools began shutting down. I live in Kansas, so we were the first state to have a statewide school shutdown. A lot of the burden of continuing to provide access and resources fell on the community of librarians in K-12 schools. And so we're here to share experiences in the hope of improving services and procedures, and not just for the isolation, however it may continue, but perhaps to prepare for other emergencies, and maybe because sometimes in emergencies we learn things we can use in our everyday work lives. So we're just going to talk about all those things, what worked, what didn't. We're not trying to set any blame or anything here, but mainly just find out how things are going and how we can improve or do things better. Joined today by two panelists from two different school systems and two different experiences. Erin Berry is a librarian at a magnet school here in Caddo Parish Public School System in Louisiana. Jim Wilson is a library specialist, district library specialist for Canyons Public School System in Utah. My co-host today is Charles Cobine, a librarian at the University of Pennsylvania and a fellow board member at Video Trust. We're going to ask our panelists to tell us about their experiences for the first half or so of the webinar. And then we're going to open the floor to our attendees who will be free to share. If you're unfamiliar with the Zoom system, there's a raise your hand feature that you can use, and that's what we'll be using to recognize you. If you have your hand raised, we'll be looking for that along about the end of, we're going to talk to Erin first and then Jim. And so think about if you have something you'd like to share or relate. Questions you can ask anytime by using that chat feature or the Q&A. And today's webinar will be recorded and available in about 24 hours on our site at videotrust.org. Okay, well, we don't have a gigantic crowd here today, but I'm sure we've got an involved crowd today, so that'll be fun. I think we probably ought to start with Erin. Charles, do you want to kick things off? You're muted.
Unmute myself.
There you go.
Yeah, Erin, we are curious about what's been going on during the pandemic in your school district. Can you tell us a little bit just generally about your district, like how big it is, how many schools, and how your library system works?
Sure, we have about 60 plus schools overall, about 40,000 students. I don't have a number of our off the top of my head for faculty. We have generally have a librarian in each school. If for some of the larger high schools and the larger like elementary and middle schools that are bonded together, we might have 2 librarians, maybe even a clerk. All of that has to do with state policy. And I guess, do you want me to tell you a little bit about just the time, like when we shut down and things like that, or what would you
Sure,
like to hear
yeah.
next?
I'm definitely interested in hearing that.
Yeah, so we're actually, I guess, 2 months in. Yesterday, March 13th, a foreboding Friday the 13th in March. We've got the final word. We've kind of been hearing things all through the week that maybe measures were going to be taken. And we did shut down. At our school in particular, we're fairly independent. Our principal's kind of a go-getter. And so we started distributing technology right away because we knew our students were motivated to be online and to keep up with their studies. We have a fair amount of enrollment in dual enrollment courses and AP courses. So kids who are counting on college credit, not to brag about our school, but just individually, we knew that would be a need. And so luckily our principal just took the initiative to pass out technology. We have a fair amount of Chromebooks. We have almost enough to have one-to-one Chromebooks on our campus. And so we actually ended up only giving out about 100. But I know that those have all been used. I've, over the past 2 months have received tech support calls from kids
Mhm.
as well as from teachers.
Was your system involved in using any streaming resources before the pandemic?
Real kind of spotty. I mean, we actually had we had United Streaming, which is basically Discovery Channel that the state paid for a while, as far as just resources that were already created for teachers that they could call on. We have at least 2 teachers in our, one science teacher and one math teacher, who basically do, I guess you would call it a flipped classroom, where they, the homework for students is to watch videos and watch lectures and lessons at home, which kind of makes sense for homework because homework should be something that is easily accomplishable on your own. And in theory, to watch a lecture or a demonstration on your own and take notes on it is appropriate for homework, whereas doing maybe a problem set or a chemistry problem set at home that you might not have gotten while at school. And so they were actually already doing that, where they provided learning videos for kids that they were expected to watch at home. And then class time was actually homework. Class time was what you would consider working problems or asking questions and really engaging with the material in more than just a note-taking way. So those 2 teachers, I think, were already ready for this.
Great. If I'm in a class at your school and a teacher wants to stream video, is it going to come to individual screens, or is it going to come to a big screen in the front, or just
say the first part again? I didn't quite catch your.
Oh, I just wondered what the mechanism is in a classroom, just so I can kind of wrap my head around that. Do all the students have individual screens they can watch if they're in school, or?
Not necessarily. This would be the chemistry teacher, for instance. I think she just records. Honestly, I think she just takes her PowerPoint lectures and records a voiceover to them. I don't know that she really has a true, a video of her face or a video of her at a whiteboard teaching. That I think she just has her audio lecture recorded over PowerPoints, and those are in a library on her website. And so students would just be expected to watch them as they can. Currently we don't have an official, school provided one-to-one technology for kids. So they would watch it on their phone, listen to it on their phone or computer, whatever they could get a hold of. So hopefully that's changing given what we've experienced the past 2 months.
Okay.
And do you find, Aaron, like, are you, in terms of classes being taught, is the librarian, or does the librarian put any FaceTime into these online sessions, or has that changed in any way?
Absolutely. I think, especially at our school, our school is big enough to have 2 librarians, and my colleague is more of research and reference. She has a long history in the English department at the school, and I've kind of a newer history, and I'm sort of a natural born nerd anyway, so I go more the tech support route. But what's been really interesting is and this is something we kind of did a little bit with teachers in person, is if they were trying out new technology in their classroom, I would volunteer, like if they were going to use video, maybe use a streaming video from Discovery, or do something that wasn't really in their comfort level, use their smartboard for the first time, or have students come up and use a smartboard for the first time as a lesson. We would volunteer to just go sit in the back of the room and just be available, instead of them having to call us and walk from the library, just go hang out in class. And then sometimes you'd have inadvertent things where you would notice something and you could tell them later, hey, maybe if you did this, because then you understand their lesson better if you see it. So now what we do, which is I think really cool, and both my colleague and I do this, is we volunteer to just go be a student in their Zoom classes. And so we just kind of sit in the background, and it's even more subtle, because if we see something happening, we can just kind of text them. We don't have to interrupt the class and potentially embarrass them in front of teenagers, which is, that's, if you teach teenagers, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Make no mistakes in front of them. And they can just kind of look at their phone and go, oh yeah, I need to unmute myself, or, whatever it might be, some little techie thing that they could do to improve.
There's something that works better, isn't it? Because before, you couldn't sit in the back of their class and do that.
Yeah, it's really not. It really, because now it's a little, I could be teaching class right now and I could look at my text and you don't even really know that I'm doing it. And that goes the reverse way with teachers. Teachers now have to observe their classroom in a different way, because, anything can be going on. I mean, anything could be going on. Some kids are really clever and they have their static photo up. It kind of looks like this. And in a class of 30 kids, you just have to you have to be a little bit more creative in classroom management.
Yeah, what is that like for a librarian? I mean, do you enter into the conversation sometimes, like during class time, or I assume like the secret to classroom management in the online environment is just actually like addressing the student and asking them a question so you can verify that they're present.
Right. Well, you have to do all kinds of things that in a way it's better, because you could have students respond in the chat box, and so that takes away, there's always the dynamic of the talkative kid versus the non-talkative kid, or the recalcitrant kid versus the super enthusiastic teacher's pet. And but the chat box kind of equalizes that, and I think it's something that students are used to. They're used to chat. They're used to my colleague and I started a Google Classroom, not to get off topic, but we started a Google Classroom for each of our class levels. So it's like the freshman library space, the sophomore library space, and the freshmen went crazy. I had no sooner hit create class than all of these mysterious messages were being, we finally figured out, I think they were sharing their Instagram handles or some social media handle. So I'm like, what are all these random words they're sharing? And then we realized, oh, that's their username on some secret system we're not supposed to know about.
Oh, well, Instagram isn't a secret.
So the chat box is perfect. Well, it probably was. It might not have been Instagram. There were some bizarre names, and we kind of scanned them to make sure there wasn't anything, that would be offensive or mean. And then we realized, oh, it was the typical old people saying, what is that on that screen? And it was they were just telling each other where to find each other, and especially freshmen, they're still so sweet, and they want to talk to each other.
Well, that's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to talk about a little bit, if you could, what have you found out that did the district make plans that didn't work? Was there were there provisions made that like didn't work out, and why? And have you got some kind of feedback loop going now that you can evaluate stuff?
Just a little bit. I'm not going to claim that we're super organized about that, but we have the seeds. Hopefully, I mean, I kind of anticipate. I don't want to be a negative person, but I also don't want to be in the hospital, with a respiratory illness. And I just feel like this coming school year, we're going to be back online again. We're going to have to be. I mean, I'm not at a high enough level to make those decisions, but I just will hope that our leader, we're probably going to be maybe 1 or 2 days a week online, and then maybe staggered attendance other days. And so we had the seeds for it. So our assistant principal of discipline has essentially created a database of, which students have checked in. And I mean, to me, it's great communication, because whereas before we might not have, the science teacher of this student might not know if the math teacher was having problems with this kid, is we just have this massive list that we share to see like who's been in contact, who hasn't. Maybe a student is very close to their English teacher, and so now the English teacher can quickly collaborate with the science teacher to make sure that they get logged in and they do their assignments. And we can see it all. Like, it sounds kind of cold because it's a database or whatever, but in a way it's more warm because we can immediately find out. Whereas before it might have been a few weeks before we found out that a student was in trouble and wasn't participating. And now that assistant principal is keeping all of that information to it, as long as you read it and scan for your kids' names, you can often be the person who helps, like, oh, I've talked to so-and-so. I'll just send them a quick remind. We have the messaging program called Remind, and I'll just send them a quick remind message and find out why they're not doing their English work. It's like having a million parents coming after you, but I think it's working.
What about the resources? You said before you had basically a Discovery Channel type clone, and I forgot the commercial name of it, but I mean, do you wish you had more of that or less of that at this point? Are you hearing from teachers about that?
I think we're okay. I mean, right now we're kind of spoiled because there's so many freebies that are out there. And so I think, again, somebody at a higher pay grade than myself needs to look at that and really look at the statistics and say, okay, what are you guys really using? Because some money is going to have to be spent for better online resources. I think especially, I'm a high school librarian, but I would think especially for little kids, older kids read longer books. They don't need as many books in succession to like keep their literacy going. Whereas if you're in second grade, you can't just read one 300-page novel for the semester and get your literacy intake. I mean, you may read 20 different books. You may be starting you need this huge variety.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so the seeds are there, but yeah, I think there's still there's a lot to do to get organized and then get money to pay for it.
Well, that what you said before about, I don't know if higher pay grade is the right term, but we should definitely talk to Jim Wilson, who's at a district. You're a district library supervisor or specialist, I guess is the title, right?
Right.
And do you supervise library? Can you tell us a little bit about what your job is and a little bit about the district?
Yeah. So first of all, about the district, we have 29 elementary schools, 13 secondary schools, and 4 kind of specialty schools. So we have about 33,000 students, and within that, the breakdown for the staffing in the libraries would be in secondary, we have certified teacher librarians, meaning that they have their teaching certificate and they have their school library media endorsement. In our elementaries, we have paras, so they are hourly employees. They're not school library endorsed. And so that's a big issue as far as just the amount of support that they need. So my job, it's kind of all over the place. It's to definitely administrate and support the school libraries. So we're doing PD on a regular basis. We're doing, answer a lot of questions online or on internet or email, as far as, how they're running their library, questions they might have with our circulation program. And so a big thing that our district has our libraries do from K through 12 is to handle all of the textbook inventory as well. And so within every school, there is the textbook issue. And so there's a lot of work that goes into that as well. Tracking, cataloging, making sure that schools have what they need, those kinds of things. In addition to that, I'm trying to visit schools, observe, provide feedback, because our elementary schools are part of a rotation where all of the students come into the library at least once during the week. Basically designed as a specials program, hand in hand with providing our elementary teachers time for collaboration and PD. So that's another thing that is challenging, in that they're teaching, but a lot of them don't have a teaching background. And so there's a lot of PD that goes into that, and guidance on that. So that's a little bit about my district and a little bit about what I do. Yeah, let's go with that.
What happened when the pandemic hit? How did everything change? What are the main bullet points that you would use to describe the change in your job and in the system?
The first thing that happened was the push to get devices out to kids. And a lot of our technology within our buildings, and this is the thing that makes it kind of challenging within our district, is some of our schools have all of their technology cataloged through the library, because we have a side of our program that is kind of school assets based. And so we found that we as library staff had to really kick it in gear and try and support the schools in getting this technology out to students. And so we found that even our elementary people who didn't have a lot of experience in it were trying to go in and enter things into Destiny using the asset tags that we use for our fixed assets program. Get those things ready to go, and then checking them out to students. And so that was really, gosh, it seems like about a 3 or 4 week process. And so what we found is that a lot of our library staffs were still in the building trying to help with that situation. In addition, just trying to support teachers in their curriculum, trying to connect with students any way that they can, providing support. I know some of my elementary people were doing actual Zoom meetings where they were reading to their students online. So they would invite students to basically story times online, which was a neat thing. But yeah, there was it just depends on the school, but there was a lot of creativity going on, and a lot of trying to find ways to reconnect with students.
Do you have some way now to kind of share all that creativity and
well, we're working on that. We've tried to, in the past, before this all hit, particularly in secondary, try and share out what our certified teacher librarians are doing as far as circulations and teaching lessons and collaborations with teachers through Stats Quarterly. But we're going to be talking about that in an upcoming meeting on Monday, just to say, how do we share out what our role has been since this all changed on, I think it was about March 13th as well, was kind of doomsday for us too. And so I think that's really important as librarians, that is that we share out what we have been doing. It's kind of scary because as we see the financial crisis that has accompanied the pandemic, we also see the fear of cuts in education and where are things going to be cut. And so school librarians, particularly certified teacher librarians, are always kind of nervous about that. I know one of my middle school people shared an article about what was happening in California in their second biggest school district, and that was that they just notified all their school librarians that they were cut at the end of the year. And so that's a big thing. And I think sharing out what we do and connecting, even if it's not during pandemic time, is a huge issue. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Charles, do you have a question or?
Oh, I'm kind of wondering, like, things that are specific to the use of media at this time and how that's kind of changed, like, not having the physical classroom to go into anymore. I'm just wondering if you've noticed like an increase in the use of, like, streaming products, movies, film clips, and just getting that environment sort of ready for students.
Yeah, so we don't have a district-wide streaming program to use. We for book access, we use Sora, which is through Overdrive. So we've had a huge increase in our ebook checkouts. The students also have access to the state's online library. So Utah's online library has a lot of great resources. They can stream things from that. They can connect with databases, those kinds of things. And then our teachers are using a platform called Canvas, which is basically an online classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the way that they've tried to connect with students. Our secondary teachers were more familiar with it than our elementary. And so there was the push to help our elementary folks get on board with Canvas. And so those were the platforms that we've been using to try and connect with students. In addition to, I think we checked out over 5,000 Chromebooks to make that happen. So,
yeah.
There's a comment here from Tiah Frankish, who says, so much free material was offered that we didn't have access to admin portals to evaluate the usage. This has made it really hard to evaluate the use on a school-by-school basis. Question for Jim from Aaron Barry. Is this your question, Aaron? Okay. What do you? She typed in.
Say that sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's nearby. What are your plans for textbooks collection this year and distribution next year? Any move to online textbooks? And next time I'll let you ask your own question, Aaron. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. So we kind of have a mixed bag here. Some of our textbooks, the student portion particularly, or the student edition, is online. We still have quite a few physical textbooks though. And so each librarian is working with their administration to collect them. A lot of that is going to take place next week. Some of them are just doing drop-offs at the front of the school on library carts or bins. Some of them actually are just having parents walk up to. I know one of the high schools, they're opening up the doors for the shop area, and they're just going to have them check them in at that place. And so it's kind of all over the place, but the librarians are working directly with their administrators to figure out what works best for their parents and for them. And then, yeah, we're always excited to move more towards online textbooks, because tracking textbooks is a huge job, particularly in elementary school. Some of these reading programs are just huge. And so that's definitely something we're always looking at being able to do.
Okay. Are there things that you would change now? Are there things that you wish you had done differently or would do differently if you had the opportunity again? God forbid, but you know.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think is more from a district perspective, and that is just trying to get everybody on board with making sure that all of this technology stuff is in one location, so that we don't find ourselves scrambling to make sure it's cataloged and ready to check out to students. And so that's kind of something that I can encourage, but we have to get everybody on board to do that. And so there's that issue that I think is the biggest thing that we faced. And so we found the library scrambling to try and help with that.
Okay, great. I want to break for just a second here, but just to mention another webinar that's coming up, but I also want to invite attendees at this point to raise your hands or text in a comment, and I can also just click a button here and allow you to speak. Tiah Frankish, for example, had a comment I wanted to ask her to elaborate on, and I'm going ask her to do that in just a minute. But I want to put in a word about another webinar coming up June 11 from Video Trust. This is a starter session for librarians who want to learn about streaming. So if you're new to streaming and you want to learn more about it, how to find appropriate resources, what the system requirements might be, much, much more, this is the webinar to attend. Your presenters will be Sarah McCleskey from Hofstra University and Scott Spicer from University of Minnesota. I can't think of anybody better to teach a class like this. These are librarians with years and years of experience in streaming. And they know a lot of vendors. They've had a lot of different situations with technology and cataloging and contracts and so forth. We're really fortunate to have them to help us out. And if you're new to streaming, you can register at our website, videotrust.org. There's a section there for professional development, and you'll see the link to sign up for the website on that page. While you're there, you can sign up for our newsletter and keep up with everything that we're doing, because we hope to be doing a lot more programming about video and film and streaming and related subjects for K-12 librarians. If you like today's webinar, tell your colleagues, please, in the K-12 or other library world, because we'd love to have you aboard as we move forward. I'm gonna, okay, Tiah, I just turned on your mic is muted there, I think. I'm gonna unmute, there you go, no, there, sorry. Do you wanna talk? Do you wanna tell us a little bit about what you were saying?
So I work in Adams 12 five-star schools in Thornton, Colorado, and we serve about 37,000 students in 48 schools.
Oh.
And school-based budgeting is what has been the norm up until about a year ago. And we're starting to very slowly move to a more district-managed base of materials that'll be available across our district, because so many differences, inequities exist between building to building. But it wasn't something that we were able to get in place for this remote learning. So that has been one of the biggest challenges. So much of this stuff has been free and it's been awesome, but we don't have any way to look at the data without having to talk with one of the sales reps. So they'll escalate our statistics, sort of like I was able to escalate my SOAR statistics, saying that my SOAR checkouts had increased by 1,000% since turning SOAR on this year. We had 96 checkouts in 1 month and 1,000 checkouts in the next, and so that's 1,000% increase kind of thing. So I'm afraid that the data that we're getting from the sales reps isn't going to be as representative of the actual content that's being accessed. So some of the tools that we really liked were like Discovery Education. We love Learn 360, which is available through our Colorado State Library Consortium at a reduced price. We're so thankful for their negotiating of a lot of our pricing for us. I don't know of other video streaming tools. ABC Clio, I think, is one that some of the high schools subscribe to. But for the most part, teachers just go to YouTube. And when YouTube was kind of blocked because of all the stuff that's happening with YouTube right now with students under 13, their privacy policies and blah, 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 it just made it really challenging for us to see what people were using and how they were using those tools. We did see a large number of people attend our sessions on Edpuzzle, which allows us to upload a video and then stop and put in questions, which is amazing, and our teachers love that. So we have seen a lot of people adopt that tool. But a lot of it was self-made videos of their lectures and whatnot.
Have there been concerns about the quality of some of the video that gets used in those classroom situations, or like where it comes from? And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, some of the stuff that people download from YouTube is terrible. Like the
Yeah.
quality of it is just awful. It's granular and it doesn't feed right and the tracking's off and it can't be subtitled and like all the things that make a video accessible for students. A lot of times those videos don't have it. I see that Jeff asked a question. Other attendees working in states where consortia control media use. It's not so much that they control it, they just negotiate it for us. So if we opt to go through the library consortium, we can. You go directly. Yeah, you don't have to use the consortium. It just is very beneficial. So like we were subscribing to Learn 360 prior to them negotiating with our library consortia, and we were paying $700 the school building for access to their streaming materials. And most of our elementary schools dropped to $430 after the consortia did their negotiations. So it was pretty significant.
I'm going to leave you on the line, Tia, if you would, and I want to ask all three panelists. Talk to me a little bit about the technology that what you have. You probably didn't pick. It was probably picked for you. It was probably, I'm guessing, most of the technologies that you have strengths and weaknesses. Can you talk about that a little bit, about what works great and what's kind of like you wish you had different, or you wish you had have you heard about systems that work better? I'd love to know about that. No?
Are you talking about like classroom?
Streaming and the system, yeah, whatever systems you're using to make all of this virtual learning go on that you're involved in.
So our schools are using primarily Google Classroom and Seesaw for content delivery, and students are accessing that learning on Chromebooks, either district provided or self-provided. We have, I don't know, probably 5% of our schools are BYOD, and the rest of the schools are provide devices to students. We're not one-to-one yet, but we probably will be next fall.
Does everybody like Google Classrooms? Was that in use before the pandemic, or did you guys?
Only in some classrooms. This was a huge learning curve for all of us. Like it was huge. There were some teachers that didn't even know that Google Classroom existed. So we had to do a lot of professional learning. And just, you know, to compare our district with the other two districts that have kind of talked, we have a teacher librarian in all 5 of our comprehensive high schools, a half-time teacher librarian or digital literacy coach in our 11, 12 middle schools and K-8s, and a half-time teacher librarian or digital literacy coach in each of our 30 elementary schools.
Well, here's something else that's been on my mind about all this, is that not everybody at home has the internet. A lot of students, I live in a kind of an affluent area of my state, but I also know that there are people here who don't have access to the internet, and they go to the library to get access to the internet. There are a lot of people in rural communities that park their cars outside of a hotel or a library or someplace like that just to use the internet. I wonder, and I've got to think that students in ESL classes, this has been a huge challenge. So can we talk a little bit about that? And do you have any input that you'd like to?
My district did check out the hotspots. They had some of those available to try and help with connection. But I think that is one of the big things we've seen with the pandemic, is that those students who don't have the resources at home, whether it be technology or even having, parents that are not connecting with them the way they should academically, we're seeing, inequities there too. But we did, primarily Chromebooks to try and help students, and then of course, the Canvas platform.
Were your cable companies helpful. So like Comcast, Xfinity is in our area, and we have this program called Internet Essentials that basically Comcast Xfinity allowed for families to get 4 months of internet free. And so if there was some sort of a billing issue or discrepancy, then the district actually did some negotiation on behalf of the families that might have had outstanding debts with the cable company in order for students to be able to learn. And the cable company actually put off trying to collect those debts during this remote learning time, which we've been like eternally grateful for. But that's something that our IT department did.
Where in Colorado are you two?
We're just northeast of Denver.
Okay. All right.
Did other school districts do that? I'm just really curious, like, has anybody else? We did have a few hotspots, but we actually got on the hotspot train a little bit late, and everything was sold out by the time we decided we were going to purchase hotspots. And we really didn't have the finances for it because it wasn't something that we had budgeted for.
I just put Christine Durst on the line. She's also in Utah, apparently in Provo. Is that right, Christine?
That's right.
Okay.
Hi, Christine.
Your comment.
Hi, Jim.
So you guys all know each other. All the Utahns are here, I think. We have a pretty big turnout from Utah. You made a comment about Google. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Christine, and what happened?
Google has, Provo is a Google city. And so when things kind of started going down, what we did is we had principals and other supervisors identify an at-risk community of students. And if we would go through, contact them however we could through caseworkers, individual contact, phone calls, and just check to see if they did have internet access, if they had Wi-Fi, if they, had the materials that they needed to do this virtually. And we made arrangements. Google gave us a grant, and we were able to have Google go out and actually hook them up, set them up with Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi services. It is a basic service. So if you have multiple students, like, more than 2 or 3 students that are working off of it, it could run a little slow. But we were able to reach out to the community and get the students connected to their teachers. While the teachers were doing instruction, they could also notice, we do Google Classroom also, so they could notice who was or was not attending in Google Classroom. And we just, then we would work with them in reaching out to those families. And actually, I was on that task force that would reach out to families, and it was very rewarding to hook up a family with Wi-Fi and get them going with their students. I know school for us is almost over, but we're looking at summer school options, and also when we go back to fall, they're going to still need that connectivity.
We have somebody here from Canopy. I'm sure most of the librarians have heard of that service. Nicole, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was just curious if the panelists have thought about using the more traditionally university-based streaming platforms like Canopy, Swank, Hoopla, Alexander Street, Films on Demand, all those guys that usually service the university base, but I'm sure like myself, my fellow streaming providers are getting interest. We do work with K-12, but unfortunately there are some things that are in place that we are still working on, like we can't remove rated R content, and I know there's concerns about that, but we're really trying to work as quickly as possible to help service the K-12 community. So I'm just curious about the panelists' thoughts about those services.
We work pretty closely with our public library here, and it's not a university setting, but they have great Hoopla services, and over the past year we've set it up so that kids can automatically get a library card without because sometimes kids have a barrier to getting a public library card because of transportation or maybe the parent owes a debt to the library, and so the card's put on hold. And so this card allows for hard copy checkouts, but more importantly, especially right now, they can immediately go into online services. And so we definitely promote Hoopla. We had a great deal. Our state doesn't always understand buying in bulk, and so there was a time when our state bought World Book for every district, and so that was a great equalizer because we have some really, really poor school districts, rural school districts in Louisiana that have nothing. And so if the state buys that for the whole, that just equalizes. And I think even private school, I worked at a private school for a while, and we were able to benefit from that as well, because it just serves, it serves all the children. And recently we had Discovery, and it was branded as United Streaming for through our public broadcasting system, and the state bought that service for all schools. Again, another great equalizer. That, of course, you have to have the internet service, and I'm really appreciating everybody's comments about that. I think our school district could probably do better at making sure, because I've heard pieces that, oh, everybody's going to get some kind of device for the coming fall, but the device is useless if you have to go sit in a McDonald's parking lot to do your homework, if you can't, be somewhat in the comfort of your home to do your work. But those are the services we're trying to use.
I also connected us to Kathryn Levenson, who mentioned Schoolology. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that in case there are people who are not familiar with it, Kathryn?
Hi, I'm Kathryn Levenson. I'm the librarian for the high school at Piedmont Unified in California. We're up in the Oakland Hills. We started using Schoology about 2 years ago. We were already using it for all our classes when the physical campus shut down on March 13th. So it's basically a platform, I think, pretty similar to Google Classroom, where you can set up lesson plans, embed video, lecture material, embed all sorts of different little streaming service and quiz services, your testing, your attendance, your grade book. And we use a different platform for our final grades that's called Infinite Campus. And so when the teachers are done with their grading in Schoology, they have a way of just transferring it straight over to IC. So I don't know what other questions people might have about it.
I have kind of a crazy question. Since we're talking about accommodations for families that don't have the internet and that might need special services, I don't know, theoretically, is it better if everybody has the internet? Is it easier or harder to deliver those services in a virtual environment than in a physical environment?
Interesting question. I mean, I did my entire master's program in library science through San Jose State in a virtual environment. So I personally feel comfortable with that environment, and I've used it. I've used Schoology as a librarian for teaching our research lessons. We have a freshman iSearch program through our English department. And so I've used the flipped model where they have all the lecture material and videos and things that they do at home, and then they used to come physically into the library to do a discussion part of the research and also do some small group activities on that.
I have a question for all K through 12 librarians here. Like, I'm wondering, are there certain subjects within the curriculum that make heavier use of video content and streaming content, film clips and the like? Would you say that you've found that you're working a little bit more intensely with certain teachers than others?
Who are you talking to? Charles?
Oh, anybody who wants to kind of address that question. I'm just curious, like in terms of the type of content that people are using, if they see trends toward one subject having had heavier use than another.
Is that even a concern?
Well, my guess would be probably social studies, science. I know they use a lot of video clips, those kinds of things. Sometimes in ELA, you'll see that.
We're finding that our math teachers are using a lot of video content. They're connecting to Khan Academy quite a bit. Oh, sorry about that. It's time for another meeting, clearly. I actually am triple booked next hour.
Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it.
No, it's okay. I've got 10 minutes. So, but a lot of our math teachers are using either pre-recorded content like from Khan Academy or other tools that are like on YouTube. And in the Learn 360 platform, there's quite a bit of math content as well. It's actually been one of our biggest challenges is finding like a whiteboard tool that works well with either Google Meet or Zoom for them to be able to do recordings of themselves teaching a math lesson as well.
Thank you. I also connected us with Tina Bartholoma. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I don't know if you pronounce the TH as a TH, but I've heard that name pronounced Bartholoma. And you made a kind of a comment that made me smile a little bit about students zipping through the longer content, but also people, you said math uses a lot of video content. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you know that?
So my name is Tina Bartholoma, and
I was totally wrong.
and I'm actually a public librarian, and my specific role for my library district is to work as the school liaison. So I work with 3 school districts in my area, and then also with private and charter schools. And the comments I was making come from the point of view of as a parent. I have 4 students in my home that are doing online school every day right now. The youngest one is 10 years old. He's in 4th grade, and the oldest is a senior in high school. And our state, the state of Utah, has asked our teachers to really kind of cut down the amount of content that they're providing because parents who are also working from home were getting overwhelmed. And so they've asked the teachers to focus mostly on math and science for the elementary students. The secondary have to do a bit more since they're enrolled in more classes than that. And what I have found is that many of the math teachers are either connecting with specific services that offer math tutorials in a kind of a playable environment. And if the math teachers don't already have access to that, they're creating videos. And that's what's happening for my senior, is her teacher is creating, is holding online Zoom meetings and actually creating content and embedding it in his Canvas course on how to do the math problems. And if she thinks she understands it, she'll just zip right through the video, and then she'll try and do it and realize she didn't understand it. So she actually uses videos both ways. When she doesn't understand something, she'll sit there and pause it and play it and pause it and play it. But if she thinks she understands it and thinks it's boring, she'll just kind of skim through content. And my 10-year-old has that same habit. His teacher put an online field trip together for her class that involved several different options of video watching. And so he picked a few of them, but he did not sit and watch everything that had been provided.
See, could I tag on to what Tina's saying? I'm very excited about like a new kind of visual literacy. I used YouTube's, just recently used a YouTube video to make a face mask. And the best ones to use are the ones that have elements of print material in them. Section headings, little captions, an index, a guide, extra guides. And when I teach nonfiction to students in high school, I always tell you never read a nonfiction book Roman numeral 1 to page 399. Nobody reads I mean, maybe you guys do, but I don't. If I'm doing research on something, I'm popping into the index, I'm reading it out of order, I'm rereading, like you said, your daughter is reviewing the section. I think it's, I just think it's part of this new generation of visual literacy and of, you even see colleges now asking, maybe instead of an essay, they ask for a student to create a video. I was telling my husband about Flipgrid that we just started using in our librarian group. You can't, there's so much plagiarism in high school, especially my high school is very high pressure, and kids make these, I love kids, but some of them make some really dumb mistakes on their choices about writing stuff, and it's because they're under pressure for grades. You can't fake a video. That's what's so cool about it. It's warts and all. That's why Zoom meetings can be so entertaining. But that's great. That's an okay. I think that's an okay to watch the content. I have a 2 o'clock meeting, so I'm just going to drop that there.
All right.
I was excited by what you said, Tina, that your daughter is using it just the way it's supposed to be used. My 2 cents.
I want to get a closing statement in here really quick because we're running out of time, and I just want to thank Aaron and Jim very, very much, all the attendees, especially those who shared their experiences with us. If you think Video Trust, who we're sponsoring this webinar today, is something you'd like to continue with, we'll be offering memberships soon that will allow you to attend all the webinars and access all the publishing for librarians. Every segment of the library world, K through 12, academic, public libraries. We'd like to do much more with K through 12 librarians. We're looking for ideas for more programming that will suit you and get you involved. And if you're interested in helping with that, please contact me at chair@videotrust.org. My name is Jeff Tamblin. Let's see, we also have a newsletter you can subscribe to on our website at videotrust.org, and we will provide more information on technology, copyright, resources for the classroom and library, much more, videotrust.org. Very great pleasure to speak with you all today, and thanks very much for participating. I think I've got another couple of minutes. If anybody has another questions, Lori Siebel wanted to know more about Swank, if anybody's using it. And Tia also popped in a question there, is anyone using Camtasia? I never heard of Camtasia to add interactive hotspots.
So you can take a video and add spots where kids click on the screen during the video and it takes them to external content or posts the question.
So like a automated manuscript, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I haven't tried it yet, so I was just curious if anybody else had tried it. It got brought up in a meeting yesterday.
Anybody using Swank? Any districts?
We have a Swank license in Adams 12 so that schools can do events and show full videos, but we don't stream through Swank.
What kind of stuff do they use Swank for?
Well, it's like a movie licensing. It allows you to do public showings of copyrighted material.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Other people may not be, but did you, what I know them to license is a lot of Hollywood films.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. A lot of the Disney films are available through that platform.
So like if people want to do an after hours family event where they have like a princess ball and they show princess movies while they're doing the princess ball or something like that, or be able to show the Christmas story during their Santa's workshop or whatever. It's so that we don't have to pay for individual licenses when teachers and schools want to do fundraising opportunities like that.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Aaron, Erin just asked if anyone remembers HyperCard.
I do.
Now we know you're at least 85 years old, Erin.
I'm so 85 years old. I am totally 85. No, when you said about the interactive hotspots, I was like, and the old is new again. HyperCard was, yeah, never mind. Look it up on Wikipedia.
Right?
Well, everybody, thank you once again. We're gonna wrap this up, but we'll be doing another one soon. Like I said, June 11. If you want to learn more about streaming, if you're new to it, that's going to be a great webinar. So talk to you more soon. Let us know what else we can do for you. chair@videotrust.org is my email address. Thank you. Bye-bye.